Today we are talking all about general rules to abide by when in a dance studio. These are things that are not just specific to our studio, being Elite Performance and Fusion Center. This is general practice in any dance studio. We've talked previously about having water in your dance bag. Most studios only permit straight up water, nothing flavored, not milk, not orange juice, plain old water. This is for multiple reasons. One, water keeps us hydrated. Two, the other items, when you start mixing stuff in, if it were to spill, can create a really nasty mess on a lot of equipment, the floors. It can get on costumes. It really wreaks havoc. Another thing becomes what it does to us when we are dancing. Dance is a physical activity, and we want to stay hydrated during that. And if we're jumping and stuff like that, we don't really want to be crashing out of a sugar rush. We also don't really want like milk curdling and all that gnarly stuff that goes with that. And some of the other beverages that are can be great to replenish electrolytes and whatnot are better suited to have at different times, not when you're in class. Again, that also comes down to that can also stain items and things of that nature. So your general rule is just plain water. Another big one is gum. You should never be chewing gum in class for a few reasons. One, it's a respectful thing. You don't want to be sitting there chomping away while your dance instructor's talking to you. It's disrespectful. And again, most of what dance entails is a discipline, and that falls in suit with that. Another big reason for no gum would be none of your dance instructors want to be doing the Heimlich maneuver on you. So we want to restrict a choking hazard. It's just not cool for us. There should be your other general things like no running. If you're in class and your instructor asks for you to do a specific choreographed run, that's one thing. But you shouldn't just be hightailing it through a studio or down any hallways or through a lobby. You never know who's around. You never know what fragile items may be around. Most studios have props and different things happening, and running can just be unsafe for those around you, not to mention just yourself. When we're in class, we want to make sure that we are refraining from talking and leaning. These are two big things when we're in class, because even if you're having a side conversation, you could be missing out on minuscule little details that are happening around you. It doesn't matter how much you think this conversation is important over here. There are a lot of very subtle nuances that are just demonstrated, or different mannerisms that are presented, that you can totally be missing out on by having a side conversation. It's also disruptful, because if there's multiple people talking, not everybody can hear everything. Even if it's a smaller class, that can create a distraction, or you could again be missing out on details or reminders of things that need to be happening. When it comes down to leaning, this is a huge one. You don't know what you're leaning against. If you're leaning against the wall, you are oftentimes showing disrespect towards your teacher and your fellow classmates by just looking disinterested. If you're leaning against the bar, it's the same connotation. If there's props, you shouldn't be leaning against props or things that you don't know are safe to be leaning against. It doesn't matter how incredible it looks. It doesn't matter if it looks like it's fun to play with. Whether you're on stage or in a studio, we're oftentimes getting ready for shows. We've got different things going on. You don't want to be leaning or touching things that you have no reason to be touching. You want to make sure that you are carrying yourself in a way that shows that you are attentive and alert for class, and leaning in any regard just doesn't do that. Going into class. The other day, our topic was be early, be ready, and be prepared. Today, I want to go into details as to what not to do on that. I made mention about showing up 2 minutes to class being a what not to do. The same goes for showing up late. Now, there are certain extenuating circumstances where, again, most dance teachers understand everybody has other things happening outside of class. We also understand if you're doing back-to-back classes, there may be a little bit of a delay. Now, a little bit of a delay is a big difference than missing all of warm-up or being 20 minutes late and things of that nature. And so what happens is, again, we talked about the mental side of dance. This is part of that. It becomes a disruption. If you know you're going to be late, it's always really pleasant when people shoot a text or call and be like, hey, just so you know, or if your studio has absent or tardy forms, fill those out in advance. These shouldn't be common practices per se. They are also important where if you do wind up coming in late, you want to make sure that you are being as minimally disruptive as possible. So a general rule to abide by is to wait for the music to stop. You don't want to just be waltzing on in while everybody's going across the floor. If your instructor said that you need to warm up, you need to make sure that you do that. If for some reason you will have missed too much of warm up, also don't be surprised if your instructor asks for you to sit on the sidelines and watch, take notes, things of that nature, because at some points it just becomes unsafe for you to dance. You're not dancing on a warm body. It doesn't matter what class you're doing. Most dance instructors want to make sure that you are training safely and that your body is ready to withstand what you're doing. All of that comes into your timeliness. Some other general rules would be if your instructor gives a directive. This can come from different means. Sometimes it's verbal. Sometimes they have to make corrections, be it in rules that have been set or notes that have been given or information that is going out. We give a lot of verbal directive. Sometimes it can be written. Sometimes it can be communicated by just a note or an email, this, that, or the other. Regardless of whatever your instructor does and the means of how they get it to you, that is typically what is supposed to be happening. It is your job as a dancer to make sure that you are following that instead of bouncing back and things like that. And you don't want to miss out on some of those other notes. In addition to what we practice in the studio, I also want to take a few minutes to talk about online training and some general rules to abide by there as well. Now, there are so many different platforms right now, some of which we're also working on our own, and we will be announcing at a later date. But we want to give some general reminders to anybody. When there's group classes, it may not be a bad idea if your instructor also has everybody that's in the group mute their end of the videos. That way we minimize background distractions and things of that nature, because again, we should not be talking in some of the platforms where you're able to write comments and things of that nature, that should not be happening during class because you're not dancing. So this should be, again, a mindset that you're in when you are training, even if it's virtually, so that way you're able to have your head exactly where it needs to be for class and not talking with your fellow dancers. If you're doing a one-on-one thing, then you could probably leave the sound on or even be communicating on the phone, as we've also done in the past if audio has cut out. But it depends on your instructor and how they feel the class should go. Sometimes they may want to leave the sound on. If the sound is minimized, you can totally use hand gestures to cue that you're good or that you may not be good and you have a question, things of that nature. When you're also training online, you want to make sure that you're able to not just have distractions from others, but also have minimized distractions around you in your personal space. So it's always best to be able to kind of seclude yourself a little bit so you aren't being distracted by others that may be at home with you, this, that, and the other. So that way, again, you're able to better focus. These are just some general rules. Again, we're not trying to be negative in these regards. We want to make sure that you're able to train to be the best dancer that you can possibly be. And all of these things help set you up for that. I hope this helps in understanding some of the general rules that happen in a dance studio and why they happen. It's not just because your dance instructors want to make your life difficult and give you a million rules to live by. It's because, again, dance is a discipline and a lot of hard work, and there's a lot that goes into it. And whether you are training from a professional standpoint or just recreationally, everybody should have the same mindset and goals and things of that nature for the overall big picture for everyone to be inclusive of each other. I will see you tomorrow as we actually dive into photography and videography and some of the logistics on all of that stuff. I will see you then.